This year's International Design Day theme is The Spaces in Between, and it's hosted by the Society for Experiential Graphic Design, SEGD. And it invites designers to focus on the thresholds where ideas become experiences, where individuals become communities, and where design shapes how we belong, relate, and coexist. The conversations you're about to hear are from designers and leaders whose work lives in exactly these spaces. And we're so glad that you're here and joining us. I'm Cybelle Jones, CEO of SEGD, and we're a multidisciplinary global community of professionals who design experiences that connect people to place. And it's my privilege to introduce someone that I respect enormously. And she and I were very fortunate to be connected through Branders. We spoke on a panel together, and then I think had a Zoom call and became, just immediate friends. So she is one of the most consequential creative leaders working in brand design. So I feel very honored to have been connected with her.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Cybelle. First of all, I'm so grateful that we met. I just felt like from our first meeting and then that first one-on-one, you were like my new BFF. And I'm honored to be on the board of SEGD. And I'm really happy to talk to you today for International Design Day. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And I didn't mention in your bio, but one of the things that Joanne and I connected about is before her career in brand, she actually started out in museums. Where you were, was it
That's
MoMA?
right. My
MoMA?
first job was at the Guggenheim Museum
Oh, at the
right after
Guggenheim. Yeah.
college. And I spent 3 years there and had a 7-year career in the arts. And so it's just lovely to get back into and connected to people who create spaces for
Yeah.
cultural experiences.
And also for us, it's great to have your perspective from the brand world and kind of like a very broad global. So I think
Mhm.
this is what is great about that multidisciplinary, but there's so many threads and lines that go through both. So I think that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about the theme. So Joanne, you've
Okay.
spent your career thinking about what makes a brand not just recognizable, and there are plenty of beautiful brands out there,
Mhm.
but I think what makes it genuinely human and how it's able to create a sense of connection between an organization and the people it's trying to reach. So when you heard about this year's theme, the spaces in between, like where did that land for you, or what did that spark for you?
Yeah, I love the way you frame this because it's not enough for a brand to be just recognizable, although that is something that's absolutely essential, right? So we design brands to be distinctive, and it's those distinctive assets like the Amazon logo and the Coca-Cola design language you mentioned that make a brand recognizable. But what also is important is that a brand needs to be meaningful and it needs to have longevity in the hearts and minds of consumers. And that creates emotional connection. And that's where human is essential. So I'm inspired by our team's talent and ability to create brand worlds that are emotive, that help tell a story in an authentic way. And people can feel authenticity and they can better connect to a brand when it's speaking to them as if the brand is a person and has an actual personality. And then that connection remains in the metaphorical liminal space in between the moments when we connect with brands. And that makes brand love more enduring, giving them staying power in the hearts and minds of consumers and promoting what we like to call fandom. So for me, though, I love the theme, the spaces in between, because it's so human. It's how we carry memory and our experience with the brand, the takeaways that stay with us.
Yeah, it's funny just bringing up Coca-Cola. So I am not a big soda person. I used to be a big Diet Coke person, but I think growing up in the 70s and Coca-Cola had such an amazing campaign at the
Mhm.
time. When I land at a hotel that has a deal with Pepsi, I feel personally insulted.
I love that. I'm the same.
I'm like mad. I'm mad about it. Like I've carried that with me my whole life, you
Same,
know?
same. But if I go to a restaurant and I order a Diet Coke and they say we only have Diet Pepsi, I say no, thank you.
No,
For
no. I
something
always
else.
I always have to. Yeah, it's I did an interesting project with Johnson and Johnson. They were building a museum um, before I was at SEGD,
Mhm.
and they do so many things other than what we think of the personal products like baby
Sure. Yeah.
shampoo.
Yeah.
But I said, we really have to do a scent booth because if
Yeah.
you think about baby, maybe not now, maybe not like my youngest daughter, but for our generation, you think about baby, you smell that. Like it's almost like you could smell,
Oh, yeah.
Johnson Johnson baby shampoo.
Hmm.
And it does spur memories, and those are things that are intangible, going back to that,
Hmm.
the spaces in between.
Hmm.
We connect memories with those brands, and my grandpa was a Buick man. You were never gonna get him to buy not a Chevy, not a
Yeah.
Ford.
Yeah. And we stay
So,
brand loyal through
yeah.
generations.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, let's talk about that. So on the work of all the work that you've been involved with over the course of your career, and it's amazing that you've been there since the near beginning. Um, like what are you most proud of? And can you describe like what made it work or what it reveals that actually happens in a space between the brand mark and a human being?
Yeah. So on 29 years, it's almost 3 decades of working in branding. So it's kind of hard to pick a favorite. It's like picking
Yeah,
a
we
favorite
won't tell
child.
the other children that they
So,
didn't get picked.
but so I can tell you two stories. I like telling stories that are personal.
Yeah.
So, um, and these have become lasting memories that I just carry with me, and they're really cherished. So since Turner Duckworth has worked with so many CPG, consumer packaged goods companies, with major iconic brands like Campbell Soup and Sprite, as well as brands that are growing like Tillamook and Icelandic
Mhm.
Provision, we're all over the grocery aisles, right? So one of my fondest memories is a very late night shopping excursion with my husband and daughter after a really long flight on our way to an Airbnb in a rental car, and we were exhausted. And we stopped at a regional grocery store that, of course, we'd never been to. We were lost. And as we walked up and down every aisle looking for everything on our list, Charlie, our daughter, who was probably 10 at the time, excitedly said, "Mama's logo," which they'd gotten into the habit of doing, from an earlier age, like since they were like 4 years old,
Yeah.
because I pointed out things that we had designed. So they'd gotten to that habit, and they kept shouting, Mama's logo every time they saw something. And our work was in almost every aisle. And,
Every
I
aisle.
was, I was exhausted, but with every exclamation, it
Oh.
wasn't just a jolt of pride, but a
Mhm.
connection I felt to the work, to the memory of my team working on it.
Yeah.
And it was that, Charlie just excitedly spotting them. It was a walk down memory lane for me. It also brought out these kind of familiar feelings myself of my connection to those brands and the
Yeah.
brand love. And it was like a catalog, of course, of our greatest hits. But even if you're not the designer, like everyone has relationships with brands, right? And a
Yeah.
brand mark is a symbol of your relationship with the brand. And whether or not people are really conscious of it, it actually gives you a dopamine hit. So
Mm.
when you see Diet Coke, even if you don't drink it as much anymore, it probably gives you a dopamine hit because it's something that's a little
Yeah.
bit familiar. It's familiar. It's
Mhm.
activating something in your brain. So, and I'll give you another story. My husband and I, we're still kind of old school, and we still love going to see movies in theaters. And
Good for you.
yeah, our daughter not interested, but we do. And the ones talking about our loyalty to Coca-Cola, the ones that the theaters that we frequent happen to carry Coca-Cola brand fountain drinks. And I cannot count the number of times I've watched someone in front of us turn to their friend and point to the Coca-Cola fountain cup that we designed 20 years ago that they're holding in their hand, drinking from. And it's a
Yeah.
cup where the iconic bottle graphic is printed around the cup sides. So when you drink from the cup with a straw, it looks like you're drinking from the perfectly placed bottle graphic. And
Yeah.
that delightful, discoverable moment creates connection. And, not everyone notices it, but
Yeah.
it remains to this day a moment of joy that I witness in others when they interact with that cup and point it
Yeah.
out, and it makes me smile.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I got to work on the world of Coke, just
That's
one
right. Yes,
experience. It
I
was really
remember
fun.
seeing
And
that.
we did like the bubbleizer where you could like
Mhm.
interact with the bubbles, which was really fun. But I want to say something because I think sometimes design can be quite elitist, and there has to be great satisfaction of knowing that you created brands that have touched millions of people. Like when I did work at the Smithsonian, I would always say, no one's going to know my name. Like people don't even think that anyone designed a museum. I don't know why, but like when I would tell somebody on a plane, they're like, oh, I didn't know anybody did that. It's like, but the fact that I could go back to the Natural History Museum and see someone touring the gallery that I designed now almost 30, yeah, like 30 years ago is really satisfying,
It
you
must be a
know?
great feeling, yeah.
No, but the
But
aisles,
yes,
like it's the same thing,
I
right?
know, and
Yeah.
yes, so we design for the masses. So we like to say we design for the many, not the few. But we also, we design for consumer goods and consumer services. I love the fact and I have great respect for people who design cultural spaces, especially cultural spaces that are so enduring that are hundreds of years old. Some of them.
Yeah,
I think
right.
that's
Some of
really
them.
amazing. But yes, there is definitely that sense of pride when you see your work out in the world. I remember when we worked for Samsung, something would leave our studio, and literally 2 weeks later, my family we were on a holiday coming off of a plane in Hanoi in Vietnam, and the work that had left our studio in artwork form for Samsung was plastered like all over Hanoi, from at the airport and out of home to this tiny banner in a countryside mobile hut.
Oh my
And it
god.
was just everywhere. It was 2
That's
weeks.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's really fun.
Well, we do know working with Asia, they do things so much
Yes, they
faster
do.
than we do in
They
the
do.
States. Yeah, we talked about that, I think.
Yes, we do.
Talking about speed and
Mhm.
mass, big
Yeah.
big brands. I hear that Turner Duckworth's philosophy holds this great idea rooted in a brand's truth will be as relevant tomorrow as it is today. I think you spoke a little bit about
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But it does feel like in our world today, it's like this relentless noise and short attention spans. How do you protect that kind of depth for your clients? And I guess also within the agency and process and culture itself.
Mhm. Well, firstly, thank you for acknowledging one of our agency's strengths. That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, as culture shifts and moves at greater speeds now, and as you say, there's a lot of noise, and brands are competing not just
Yeah.
within their own categories, but with the news and with out
Mm,
of
yeah.
category brands and with
Right.
influencers and whatever they're doing and clickbait. It's a really busy playing field, and
Hmm.
scrolling is endless. Oh, can I just like pause a moment just to
Yeah.
remember? Because you and
Yeah.
I are both old enough to remember the early days of the internet and search when there were a limited number of websites and Ask Jeeves was still a major
Yes.
player. And there were points at which, if you spent enough time, you actually felt like you had reached the end of the internet. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So, our approach to branding is to create enduring foundational assets, right? That last ideally for decades as expressions of a brand's core truth. That if the brand isn't wildly changing over time, those enduring assets, they really should be evergreen. And then on top of those foundational assets, we create a flexible visual identity system that provides brands with the ability to stay fresh with a dynamic toolkit. So those flexible systems are often refreshed every couple of years to kind of keep up with culture and the ever evolving way that brands need to stay current, not just to trends necessarily, but with regards to where they need to show up and how they need to show up to meet consumers where they are in culture, because that is
Yeah.
constantly shifting.
Yeah. And I don't like to bring up this example because I think it's brought up too much, but I'm just going to use it as an analogy of the Cracker Barrel
Oh,
um,
yeah.
response. But I mean, that happens with a lot of brands where they make a big change and then there's just a big pushback? Like, what is that balance
Well,
of, because I feel like people feel like they need to be contemporary and relevant, yet for some brands, it's the nostalgia of it. So how do you balance that?
yes. So I would say two things about Cracker Barrel. The first was when they posted, when they launched, they only posted the logo. And the logo doesn't carry everything. It needs to also be supported by other foundational assets and, as I mentioned, a flexible design system so that
Mhm.
it's more than just the mark. The mark is the thing that stays in your memory, right? But you feel something from everything else that supports it. And also, Cracker Barrel didn't do a very good job of explaining the why behind the
Mhm.
choices that they made. So what we do, because we work with a lot of legacy brands that have been
Mhm.
around for over 100 years, we
Yeah.
redesign Levi's trademarks and Coca-Cola's trademarks and
Yeah.
Kleenex. And so we never throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're always looking at ways to modernize the
Mhm.
legacy, really kind of sometimes we dig through archives and we find things that are even older than what they have
Yeah.
currently. And then we just kind of take them and bring them forward.
Mhm.
So we treat brand equity with kid gloves. We're very, very, very careful and respectful and ensure
Mhm.
that what true about a brand is what we try to express the most, not what we think people will like.
Yeah, I remember there was a client moment with the board of directors, during 9/11 when the client was like, "We need to change everything," because it was
Mhm.
actually the International Spy Museum that we were working on, the first
Ah,
iteration,
love that museum.
and it's the head of the board, who was former CIA director, said, "Don't
Oh,
get mission drift." And I took that to heart the whole rest of my career. It's just, it's a military tactic, but as far as like vision of a design, it's like don't get mission drift. Like if it was a good concept, a year ago, like stay on course.
it's
And
so
so I
great.
think yeah,
All
it
right, I'm
seems
now
like you guys
adopting
are
that.
really good at that. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
great.
No, it was, and I was like, thank God, because like we're in construction documentation. So if we gotta go
Oh yeah, you
backwards,
can't have
like,
mission drift now. Yeah.
oh no, you can't. But it happens. Clients do it all the time,
Sure.
as we
Oh
know.
yes, I know. I
Yeah.
know.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about equity
Okay.
and culture and who gets heard as a profession because this whole International Design Day, we try to bring awareness to the act of design and what design is and who designers are, and
Mhm.
that I think it's a great career. It's like a great mixture of business and creativity and
Mhm.
puzzle pieces and
Yeah.
collaboration. You're a woman of color and you're leading a
Mhm.
world-class creative agency. Obviously you've probably through your career worked in spaces that weren't always designed with you in mind.
Mhm.
How do you take that because we're of a similar generation, like
Yes. Yes.
how has that shaped your leadership?
Mhm.
And what do you think the creative industry still fundamentally misunderstands about inclusion?
So, okay, that's a loaded question, but I love it. So, early in my career, in the early 2000s, this is after my career in the arts. So, this career, the early 2000s, we were working a lot in Silicon Valley, and I was hardly ever the only person of color in the room because of the predominance of Asian people in tech, right? Even back then and still today. However, I was quite often the only woman in the room. And so what my male mentor, one of the founders, David Turner, did for me was he always made space for me and he ensured
Mhm.
that people didn't talk over me, modeling respect for me as a woman to people who weren't naturally inclusive. And that early experience shaped our culture at Turner Duckworth. And
Mhm.
especially after George Floyd's murder, we activated even more. I mean, we've always been an inclusive agency and we're very much very balanced in terms of gender balance. And we've been very
Mhm.
inclusive in terms of welcoming and belonging and inclusivity. Um, and we started doing even more actively. to engage in DEI and B. About the creative industry, I do feel fortunate that at least in our subsection of the creative industry, we don't experience as much racism or misogyny as we used to. So I think we have, it has gotten better. I will acknowledge, though, we are in the States, we are in California and New York. So we are in two
Yeah.
very liberal bubbles, right?
Right.
However, in certain parts of the US, we've had a few client meetings where our team members who identify as LGBTQ experience microaggressions
Mm,
or outright homophobia. It's still to this
mm,
day, which is disturbing to say the least. So our team, our team leads provide support, we provide support, and in an occasional case that is needed, we also have some sort of intervention. So
yeah.
um, and I would also say that we take a very strong stance as an agency to decline opportunities from companies headquartered in certain foreign countries where
Hmm.
our staff would not feel comfortable or safe
Hmm.
traveling due to cultural
Yeah.
norms. That's something important to us.
It got me a little bit emotional when you were talking about the early years because I had the same relationship with Patrick Gallagher, who was my mentor when I was at Gallagher
Mm,
and Associates, and he always gave me a seat at the table. And but I, in the museum exhibition field, you're working with a lot of architects and a
yeah,
lot of museum directors, and I would say the majority of my career, those leaders were male
yeah,
and most of the people below them were female.
right.
And particularly in the architecture world, I remember, and he passed, I think maybe last year. Coke Florence was a big architect in DC, and we're working on this huge project. And I was the lead from Gallagher, and it was 45 minutes I was trying to get a word in. And finally, Coke turned to all the architects and said, "Would you all be quiet? This young lady is trying to say something. I think we need to respect her and listen to her." So I admire the males who
Mhm.
go out of their way to make space and acknowledge that, it especially being younger, it's very intimidating.
Yes.
And but I agree there's been and SCGD, the majority of our membership is female.
Yeah.
So we've certainly seen a shift. Yeah.
I feel very lucky because my current uh, mentor and manager, Susie Nam, who is the CEO of the Publicis Creative Pillar. So she oversees all of the advertising agencies and Turner Duckworth and another agency within the Publicis North America region. And there are, I think, 4 female CEOs. And
Wow.
she's a great mentor and fierce advocate and also an Asian American woman.
When I left Gallagher to join SUGD as CEO, it was so hard to leave because, I've been there a really long time like
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
my family, and I just loved
Sure.
the whole entire team. But the women who worked for me said, "We're sad to see you go, but we're really proud of you that you're gonna be a CEO because that we need more
Awesome.
women CEOs in design." And so that was just, like, so heartwarming. You've watched the design industry navigate wave after wave of technological disruption. I mean, we were talking about it.
Ask
I
Jeeves.
remember, like, AOL. You were talking about,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I see people that still have AOL emails. I'm like, "How do you even have an AOL email? Like, how does that how
I
is
know.
that?" Like, I remember my grandmother, thinking that the phone was such a bad thing for a teenager, and now, it's like, I can't imagine what
It's
she would think
awesome.
about,
Uh,
the iPhone, but and AI, but,
yeah,
what has the pattern that you've seen taught you about what design actually is at its irreducible core?
a great question. I love that you use the word pattern because you're right. There is so much disruption, but we've seen so much disruption time and time again through history. Like you mentioned, we felt similarly um, to what people are feeling today when Netscape came out and when Adobe
Mm.
Illustrator and Photoshop came out,
Oh,
which seems
yeah.
really silly now, right?
Yeah.
But people need to understand that in those days it wasn't silly at all. We were freaking out. And but this time, just to validate people's fears, it does feel more ominous, right? And people are more scared about the threat of AI. And there's this kind of existential threat that I don't even feel qualified to talk about that
Right.
because,
Right.
I know that that's really enormous. So I'll stick to how it's changing our industry. I say embrace it because we're finding ways that AI has already transformed the way we work in very positive ways. So
Hmm.
when knowledge is democratized and tools are free for now,
Yeah.
and AI can generate a slew of imagery, copywriting, and even logos, we still need humans to determine what's right and to edit
Yeah.
and to craft and to bring it to life in spaces like museums where people can engage in real life. And we need to be the arbiters of taste. We need to be the shapers of culture. And so for me, design and our responsibility is about constantly finding new ways to connect with human beings to communicate something authentic. So is it AI changing the way we work? Absolutely. But guess what? Humans are evolving the way we think, the way we engage, the way we interact with brands. And more than ever, humans are seeking authentic connection. They're spotting AI slop.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
see AI hallucinations, right?
Yeah.
Or on the positive side, they applaud and they're excited when something is created with AI and is disclosed as such, and it connects with them. But there's
Yeah.
still a human behind it who authored the brief, right?
Right.
Who sold in the brief to upper management and did the hard job of getting a budget approved. There's
Right.
still an invaluable human team at the design agency
Hmm.
who came up with the entirely unexpected and surprisingly emotive answer, maybe using AI to pressure test and help them with drafts.
Right.
But after all, I
Right.
think we are still humans connecting with humans.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful. And I find what I really like about AI for me is that as a designer, my brain functions a certain way. It
Mhm.
always has. Since
Yeah.
I was a kid. I was always the creative side. I was not good at testing. I was
Mhm.
not good at math, even though I understand it conceptually, but like written math problems. So I love to do research for things that my brain doesn't work that way. And so it helps
Right.
me be better, I
Right.
think, sometimes
Right.
when I can use it on that kind of like analysis that my brain
Yeah.
doesn't function to try to understand things to do my job better.
Yeah.
What does data tell me? Things like that.
Well,
And
that's one of the great things about AI is that I heard this term recently that it's allowing people to have possible adjacencies. So in the sense that we can lean into other disciplines that we couldn't before
right.
because we now have the knowledge, access to knowledge, and the processing power to actually have an assistant help us get there.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, to your point, it's allowing us to do things that maybe we didn't quite have,
Or
not just
didn't
the
have
brain
financial
capacity.
access to
Yeah,
because, some of the
right.
way yeah, I agree. I mean, and certainly there are a lot of scary things about it. I won't deny that. But, I think that is like maybe above our pay grades or
Yeah, for
our,
sure.
our expertise.
Yes, for sure.
I know you are very proud as a parent. And
Hmm.
I'm, the same.
Yes,
And so we have to have hope, right? And we
yes.
have to think about spaces and places where genuine human connection still finds a way through. And I feel that the next generation is they don't buy into AI as much and they
No,
really want in person. What
yeah.
what gives you hope for designers in the field today?
Everything gives me hope. I mean, I think honestly, I am an eternally optimistic person. I mean, I'm also a problem solver and I run towards the problems, but I like to think that humanity, I mean, just look at what Artemis 2 just did. Those 4
Oh,
astronauts
yeah,
were
I know.
poets. They
Yeah,
were poets. They are
yeah,
poets. And
mhm,
and that may seem very far from what we do in branding and what we do in creating beautiful architectural spaces where people can enjoy culture. But it's the attitude, it's the idea, it's the ability to dream. It's the ability
Mhm.
to imagine that is the wonderful human condition. And I think that Artemis helped us remember that.
Yeah.
And I
At a
think that
time when we
we
needed it.
needed it.
Yeah.
We all really needed it.
Yeah.
So that gives
Yeah.
me hope. The human
Yeah.
experience is still very, very valid and needed. And so I'm not worried about AI. I think people should just
Yeah.
get on with it. It's just like
Yeah.
Netscape was. Ask Jeeves.
Just a little more complicated.
Yes,
I'm sure
absolutely.
the creators of AI are like, that is like
No,
light
I know.
years over
I'm
Netscape.
being tongue in cheek. It's yeah,
We're
it's
gonna bring
absolutely
Netscape back for you. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Now we're gonna have a fun lightning round.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you some questions and just kind of go with your instinct.
Okay.
Okay. A brand experience you think is almost perfectly designed for human connection.
I'm gonna be go a little bit off piece. It's not quite
Yeah, that's okay.
planned, but before I even knew that you worked on it, the International Spy Museum was one of the most amazing experiences I ever had. And it was designed for awe. It was designed to
Mhm.
understand secrets and how people work in the shadows. And I just absolutely loved the design of it. And I still remember the feeling of walking through it the first time. I've been there twice now. And I just think that that was great.
How about a word that you wish clients would stop using?
Rebrief, please stop rebriefing us.
Okay. Um, a word you wish they would use more?
Love.
Oh, that's awesome. So, if you could go back in time, one brand identity from history that you wish Turner Duckworth had designed.
Well, staying on the Artemis theme, I guess NASA. I wouldn't actually want to touch the type because it's so brilliant and beautiful and has
Yeah.
so much equity. But
You
I
wish you
guess I
had come
wish
up
we
with it.
had, yeah, I wish we had done it. Because it's so perfect.
Yeah. Talk about nostalgia too. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's really
Exactly.
great. Design fails when blank answer.
When no one is moved by it.
Design succeeds when
When it drives fandom.
that's great. Okay. Well, before we wrap, I want to bring this back to action. So, you know, these ideas you're talking about, they don't just live in this conversation. Actually, we're working together at
Mhm.
SEGD as a
Yep.
member of the board, and you're
Mhm.
now stepped up and volunteered to lead our brand committee, and you're helping shape how our organization presents itself to the global community. And we're so obscure, like we're a mouthful. It's hard to explain
Mhm.
what we are and what we do. But what are
Mhm.
you thinking about as you step into that? Like we're so looking forward to your expertise. We need the help.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Well,
And that's nothing like the brand it was developed by Pentagram. It's beautiful. It's not
yeah,
that. I think it's more like how we expand awareness into a broader community.
absolutely. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with the SEGD brand design.
Yeah.
And I think it's really more, first of all, I'm honored to be chairing the committee, co chairing it. And I feel like our mission should be to amplify the brand because
Yeah.
SEG is the best kept secret and it shouldn't be a secret. The fact, the fact that I didn't know about it until kind of recently is
Yeah.
kind of shocking to me because I feel like I get out and I,
Yeah. We've been around
I'm active.
53 years too.
I
Yeah. It's
know.
crazy. Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just really excited because there are so many ways in which people connect experientially to design. And they do it with brands. They do it more obviously in museums and cultural spaces and third spaces. And I think we have an opportunity because we have such great members, we have such great board
Yeah.
members, we have so much amazing content through
Good
our
feeling.
awards program. And
Yeah.
I'm just really excited to just shout it from the rooftops and
Yeah.
figure a way to amplify our message.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited
Well,
about.
and it's going to be great to collaborate with you because you're so
I'm
wonderful.
excited.
And
I'm so excited.
thank you for your generosity and your candor and being a boss woman in this industry. I just so respect that. And, you've spent your career building brands that make people feel something and reach across the space that an organization and a human being leave something real behind. And that's exactly what this theme is asking us to think about, like those spaces in between. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily that someone has a physical connection to the brand,
Right.
it's more that aspiration, the emotional connection. So, on
Absolutely.
behalf of SEGD and ICoD and the global International Design Day community, and speaking personally as someone who's a fan of yours, thank you for being a part of Spaces in Between.
Thank you so much. That was really fun.
It was fun.